When I first came across the My Donor Story Instagram page, I automatically assumed that the person who owned the page was part of the queer community because so many of our families are created using donor eggs or donor sperm. I reached out and asked if they wanted to be a guest on my podcast, only to discover that Sharon doesn't identify as being part of the queer community, but she is a single parent by choice, and as such, has created an entire line of books about donor conception and donor conceived children. Books that explain what the process could look like for different families. And so today I have the opportunity for you to meet her and understand some of the thinking behind the books that she's created and all of the books she has yet to come. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. Today, I am joined by Sharon Leya, who is an author in Atlanta, and I'm going to out her right from the start and say she's not part of the queer community, but a lot of the work that Sharon does resonates deeply with those of us who are part of the queer community. So welcome, Sharon. I'm going to start by asking you to tell us who you are and about the members of your family.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here and talking to you and being asked, even though you have outed me. I will deal with that in therapy later. Yes, I am not part of the queer community, but I would say, as far as having donor conceived children, we are like cousins with very different lived experiences. How about that?
Fair.
Um, yeah, I'm an author. I'm an author among other things, but in this space, I'm an author. I write children's books and have always been a bit of a writer throughout my life. Wrote some short comedy films and wrote some movie reviews, but have recently, in the last, since becoming a mom, in the last 4.5 years, become an author, starting with 26 books for donor children.
Excellent. 26 books for donor conceived children. That's
It sounds more impressive than it is because what they are 26 books with the same storyline with different conception types and different family types. So what we did was change, when I say we, I pretty much mean me and whatever my team, illustrators and editors, change the characters a little bit, change the wording a little bit, with the basic same story that teaches donor conceived children how they are made.
okay. Can we back that up a little bit then? So what was the
Absolutely. You want me to go to
why?
like when I was four
No,
or like
well, we'll fast
high
forward a
school?
little
I don't want
bit
to go
from
to high
there.
school. Yeah, I mean, what happened was, I had my child on my own. I'm a single mom by choice. And when I was looking for books to explain donor conception, there were some lovely options. What I thought was missing were a couple things. Um, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I think there's not a lot of books for donor conceived kids, or there haven't been. There's more now. But in the birth of every new audience served, you start with this and you start with that. So there's some lovely books. What was missing for me, and this is probably because my dad is a doctor, was a very scientific understanding of how donor conception works and a scientific analogy or something for children to sort of understand the concept of genetics. So these things are very highbrow for kids,
Mhm.
but they're also something that kids can still learn about even before they fully understand it. So I was looking for the birds and the bees. When I was 2.5 or 3, my mom read me the most unnecessarily graphic, baby book about how babies are conceived. So I knew it. There was no analogies like, mommy kangaroo and daddy kangaroo, blah blah blah. I knew the words. I knew penis, I knew vagina, I knew sperm, I knew egg. Um, I didn't need to go that far with my books, but I did want something for my daughter to understand how a baby is made, even if that baby is technically nine times out of 10 made in a lab, not always. But the basics of science are that an egg and a sperm come together and create this potential for life. And that life can become an embryo. I don't want to get into like really weird weeds with, embryo life, pro-life, this and that. But the reality is that people that are born, they all start from an embryo, and embryos all start from a sperm and an egg coming together. And genetics are the blueprint for how those things happen and what we as humans are made of, our phenotype. And maybe some other things too. Definitely some other things too. So all these like very, very big concepts, I really wanted to whittle them down. Really just at the beginning, I just wanted it for my daughter and for single moms by choice.
It's fascinating to me that you've taken this step, this lived experience in your own childhood and decided, okay, I need to bring some of that forward, maybe not all of it in its graphic nature, and make it
Right.
age appropriate, but like you say, make it not about the badgers or the kangaroos or the like, why is it all of these books always seem to be animals instead of humans? Because for
Right.
kids, then it doesn't, I don't, they are such concrete thinkers. I don't think that they can see the parallel the same way as they do when it's a human.
Correct. I think there's a place for it, but if I was going to be scientific and it was a kangaroo or a dinosaur or all these other really wonderful, lovely children's books, then it wasn't going to make scientific sense
Right.
because my child isn't a kangaroo.
Yeah.
So, I just tend towards the science thing of the side of life. I tend towards the evidence. I mean, just sort of very like kind of black and white like that. I definitely blame my dad. And there's also so much richness in understanding that and getting to have
Mhm.
an early glimpse. So this had nothing to do with, oh, those other books aren't for us. Those books are for us also. And now
Right.
here's this book. So when I wrote the first book, it was called Lily's Blueprints. I definitely fought with myself about whether, you try not to do too much analogy making with kids because they're just kids, and analogies sometimes serve a good purpose and sometimes they can cloud the directness. But I really kept feeling over and over again, my goodness, she got her blueprints from somebody else and I built the house, you know? And I just really it resonated so deeply with me. I kept with it. Um, it seemed to resonate in some of the groups that I sort of, I'm a big sort of commenter online for better or for worse. And, when people said, how are you going to explain to your kids even before I wrote the book? I said, well, I would just say that I got the blueprints from somebody else, but I built the building, and I saw enough people go, yeah, okay. So Lily's Blueprint started with that. My child was made with a double donor. So I ended up with an egg donor and with a sperm donor, and I told that story. And then I thought, well, let's do one for the most typical single mom by choice, which is just sperm donor.
Hmm.
And let's not forget about my daughter's really good friend who was born from a donated embryo. So that became three versions of Lily's Blueprints. And then I saw the need for, but I have a little boy, and that book's about a little girl. And I thought, all right, then I'll just put a little boy in there. And that became six versions. That became Lily's Blueprints and Liam's Blueprints.
Right.
And then it evolved. And then I thought, my goodness, what about two mom families? So then we ended up with Maisie's Blueprints and
Hmm.
Hudson's Blueprints. And then I met a single dad by choice. And I thought, there can't be many books for him. He used his sperm, an egg donor, and a surrogate, and that's its own story. Um, and then I thought about the mom and dad families, the traditional, typical, well, traditional. I'm sure maybe that's not the best word to use in an LGBTQ,
No, but it is more traditional. I mean, we acknowledge that there are more cisgendered heterosexual couples. Sure.
Yes, that's probably a better way of putting it. I'm because you only outed me today. I have not had enough preparation for knowing all the lingo that is appropriate. So forgive me if I have any blunders. But yeah, the typically known as traditional families, moms are using egg donors with their husband's sperm, and they're using sperm donors with their own eggs. So ultimately, the last piece of this was the two dad families, which, there hasn't been a lot of books. So that became Kenzie and Caleb's. So at the end, I think there's 26 altogether. And I've been very fortunate to have received really wonderful feedback. I didn't always receive wonderful feedback. In the beginning, I made some mistakes, and the beauty of self-publishing is you can fix your mistakes on the fly.
Right.
I got great input. I didn't want to publish a two-mom version without checking with some two-mom families to say, is this your language? Is this what
Sure.
resonates for you? Got great help from Dana at Mombian. She was wonderful. And then I thought, oh my gosh, the biggest mistake of all, what did donor-conceived adults think of this book? Made a lot of changes when I found out that they did not like that, or
Mhm.
this didn't resonate with them. And so here we are. So I'm almost at 3 years. I think I published my first one like the end of 2022.
Okay.
And now we are a full kind of, I guess, brand,
Hmm.
in the sense that I have an Instagram account at my donor story. And we have sort of, when I say I have people that, consult with me, or, it's me, but it's also me and. So we for shorthand are a place to talking about donor conception with our kids. And the exciting thing is that it's like asking someone to talk about their child. It's like, you just stop me. You just stop
Right.
me when,
Right.
I'll just go on and on and on. But the final thing is that I heard from a lot of people messaged me a lot, especially trans men, trans women, and said, is there a version for me? And there wasn't. I made the books as inclusive as I could, but it wasn't quite right. Or I would hear from um, a two-mom family who used a surrogate, or a mom-dad family who used a surrogate. I didn't have all the versions, and I didn't have all the customizations, and that bothered me. Um, I'm sure that a normal person would just be like, sorry, we don't have it. But then that was my next compulsion. So I'm super excited that we are almost a year behind, ready to test the customize your own version of the book. It's slightly different, but it's mostly the same, and you can draw your own avatar that looks like you, your child, your partner if you have one, and it allows for a trans man to have used their own egg. It allows a trans woman to have used her own sperm. And I think it's going to work, and I'm really excited.
That's fascinating to me. And I can appreciate that once you started down the rabbit hole beyond Lily and your own sort of
Rabbit hole is a
lived.
great word. Yeah, a great word.
But once you kind of got to past Lily's version of the story, like your own story,
Hmm.
and reflecting your own story, and started taking other people's family dynamics and family creation pathways into consideration,
Hmm.
it makes sense to me that as you launch 26 different books out there and then someone comes back and says this is great, but
Yeah,
that your next step would absolutely be, well then let's just do this so that
right.
anybody can make it for them, reflective
Yes.
of them.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a need, and I couldn't turn down that need. I'll be totally honest, both as a business decision, but also as a gift. Like, oh my gosh, like if an author can give gifts,
Mhm.
there's no better feeling. I still am a single mom by choice. I have to support my child. It's nice to have author income.
Sure.
Um, but it's so great to have author income plus be able to offer something that people cherish. Like that, I've had a career, I'm not going to out myself with my other career because I like to stay anonymous mostly for my child, but there was no gift in what I was doing with my career. My career has been fun,
Mhm.
and I also have an MBA. But the feeling of people coming to me and saying thank you
Yeah.
in a way that I allowed their child to feel more comfortable with themselves, or more competent in how they understood their identity or talked about their identity, or even how the parents can bring up, they have a book for something that may be difficult for them to explain. Like that is more valuable than money. I'm
Yeah.
not getting rich off these books, by the way. It's like a nice little
No,
passive income. But,
right. Sure.
it is so powerful and wonderful, and not anywhere. that I could have dreamed I just like if you told me 7, 8 years ago, I would be a single mom by choice and I would be an author and I would be talking about donor conception with kids and that I would like it's so the gift to people becomes the gift right back to me and it's such a phenomenal synergy. I just am so grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
One of the things that comes to my mind as I think about the books that you've created, and certainly the books you've created with for the queer community are not just necessary because, well, I mean, maybe they aren't necessary, but I feel like within the queer community, kids are going to get to a point very quickly in their lives that they are going to know that their parents didn't create them by themselves.
Right.
It's highly improbable for the overwhelming majority of the
Yes.
queer community.
Correct.
This is the case that
Yes.
it feels like somebody's going to learn this pretty quickly because somebody's saying something on the playground if we haven't told our
Hmm.
children our own story. And so to me, it makes common sense that a book like yours would make its way into the libraries of young children so that their parents can start those conversations young, plant those seeds so that that they can nourish them as the children's maturity evolves and their questions grow. They can take it from talking about a blueprint to at some point talking about actual sperm or actual eggs, and like
Yeah.
it's just an evolution of a conversation, but it starts
Yeah.
really young. I don't see that, and I could be wrong, happening as often with the cisgendered heterosexual community. I feel like there's almost a fear associated with that they sometimes
Are
those
you talking
parents
about the donor conception community within the cis community? Are you talking about just kids made in bed?
well, kids for children who are donor conceived within the cisgendered heterosexual community, those
Yes, I
parents
agree.
tend to have more
Because
fear
it's not
associated.
because it's not obvious. You
Right.
know, when you're a single mom by choice and you're a two mom family, there's no hiding it. So
Yeah,
the discussion is so much more immediate and so much more, and a two dad family also. When
sure.
you're a mom dad family, you know,
Yeah.
we can pass this off. There's no need, there's no reason. You know, I think there's a little more embedded shame still. But one thing that I forgot to mention is part of the evolution of why the two mom family sort of hit me so hard as maybe wanting a book like this is because when I started looking for donor siblings, there's about 20. We've all found each other. We are all single moms by choice and two mom families. So that's also like there was an awakening sort of like maybe awakening isn't the right word. There was like a aha of like, wait
Hmm.
a minute. We're in this club that I didn't realize we would ever be in. I was always supportive of like the LGBTQ community. I have members of my family for who are LGBTQ, but like it wasn't until that was just by nature. It's like, you know, moving towards acceptance and this and that, but I never had a connection or realized I had a connection other than, you know, family members
Hmm.
until I realized we are in this together in a very unique kind of um I don't have the right word. I'm trying to think of what the word is. It's like I wanted to say quirky because it's quirky is not the right word, but quirky in the sense that like in this sphere of like what most people have to talk about is like sex.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about that. We get to just be like we get to talk about it in a little bit more of a benign, less uh
Maybe less romantic and more clinical.
yeah, we get to talk about it in a more clinical way. And I later I'll come back to you and try to figure out why the word quirky comes to my mind. But I think it's just, I would say it's more sanitized for a children's book
Sure.
and allows it to exist in a library more easily. You know, it allows it to be a cute story, a cute book. Even though it's big stuff, we get to kind of have that, whereas other people have to have some pretty graphic discussions with their kids.
Well, that's true. That's true because it's easier to tell your child that they were conceived in a lab than it
Right.
is to tell them that they were conceived in the back seat of a, or whatever. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back.
Hi there. I'm Rowan J. Knox, author, speaker, and human rights advocate. I'm also a dad, and my kids are growing up. And now that they are growing up, my partner Danny and I are trying something new. We are opening a trans-owned and operated coffee shop in the heart of Toronto's LGBTQ village. It's going to be called Understory, and we really hope you'll check it out when it opens this winter. If you want to know more, you can visit us at understorycafe.com. See you soon, Toronto.
Right. Well, we do not have to explain until later the actual biological way this has
Right.
been traditionally accomplished. So maybe I say quirky because we get to kind of exist in a club together, and to me that's kind of um, different and fun.
Yep.
You
That
know,
works.
I see it as different and fun, and I sort of try to impart that onto my child. This is not different and face down. This is
Right.
not different and hide. This is different
Yeah.
and own it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And your child is going to grow up knowing without a shadow of a doubt every single moment of their life that
Oh,
she is absolutely 100% the person that you wanted to get to know. And
yeah,
she's here because of that. There were no
yeah,
accidents, there was no mistakes, there was no,
right,
well, it happened sooner than we thought.
right.
She's here because you planned for
Yeah,
this to happen. And
exactly.
that's never something to be embarrassed about or hang your head
Right.
in shame about.
And not to perseverate on the word quirky, but I think that um, for me, a lot of things in my life where I felt different, I have learned that different can feel one way and quirky can feel another.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it's just having fun with the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the heart of what kind of drives me is that we can have fun with this. This is a club. This is a different thing, but it's not different bad. It's different interesting.
Yeah. And diversity brings joy and opportunity and learning and all kinds of stuff. At what point did you think, now I need to sit down and put this on paper because I know she's going to be asking me questions? Like, was that your way of sort of planning how you would share this story with her?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And because I've kind of been a producer and a writer type my whole life, I sort of think, well, why don't I just make why this has to live, you know,
Mhm.
these characters or this concept, like this needs to be shared. This needs to be, I'm in the entertainment industry in the other side of my life. So I think yeah, it's like, why would I make a book just for her?
Right.
Like, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it started with absolutely that. But I don't know. I think it evolved so organically. I don't even know if I thought about it. It's just like once it was out, it had to live, and it had to look. I really wanted it to look traditional published.
Yeah.
Like or as they call it, trad. I
Yeah.
didn't want it to look like sort of oh yeah, mom wrote a book for her kid. That was really important to me to the point that I've actually spent way more money than I should revising some of the illustrations. I've redone the text. I'm still not happy with certain aspects of it. I still go back and spend money that I shouldn't. Like it's fine, but it's like I want us to, maybe we are a little different. Maybe we are more of a niche community, but I want us to look like we belong on the same shelves as Dr. Seuss.
But that's what we want our children to grow
Right.
up feeling, right? Is that
That's right.
we are just part of the community, part of the
Yeah.
world that we live in, and we're not different, we're not better, we're not worse, we're just part of the community and we're making it beautiful by all being a little bit different.
1,000%. That's so well said.
How does your daughter interpret the books and things like that? Like, because she's kind of at an age now where she's getting what it says and she's probably starting to ask a little more questions or
You know what's funny? I haven't read it to her in a while. I read it to her when she was like 2 and 3, and I just haven't read it to her in a while. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make her the custom book. So I'll get back to you on that, and that'll be very tightly and very specifically our story.
that's amazing. And then she'll be able to ask specific questions based on the
Yes.
content of the specific book.
Yeah, and I also know a lot more now. Like I've learned a lot by talking to donor conceived adults, even after the books were written. I've also miraculously we've gotten in touch with our donor, which is just like unbelievable because it was through a very bizarre coincidence that one of the other parents met his sister's friend. And the friend was like, I know that guy. He's friends with my sister. Like, I mean, it's something like that. I'm not saying that right, but so somehow like we were able to end up getting in touch with him, and so there's more now. There's more for me to say. I can say your donor's name is so and so, this is
Right.
where they live, so it's but yeah, I definitely took a break from it for a while because I just, she knows and I show her pictures, and there's such a thing as talking early and talking often, and there's another thing where you talk too much.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, just because I'm the mom who wrote the books on donor conception and I talk about it all the time. I don't want it to be so present in her mind that she needs to think about it all the time. I want to be present enough that she knows her story and she can come to me when she has questions. So I think I didn't consciously stop reading it to her. I think I don't know where it went, or I lent it to somebody or whatever, but you know, that break was fine, and now luckily I'll get to send her her own very version that looks like me and her.
That's pretty exciting, though. I mean, I love this concept of being able to personalize it for a child, and whether it's a story about the winter holidays or whether it's a story about the end of school, kids always love to see themselves reflected
Definitely.
back, right? It's like when
Definitely.
somebody gives them a photo album and says, "Look at you growing through the years." Kids love that, and so
Yeah,
this is just another way that they can do that.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's oh my gosh, it'll be a gift to me ultimately, Like I
Yes.
will be able to be like, "Oh my gosh, look what I bought for myself." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, you didn't buy this. You used your savings account to make this."
Well, there's that. There is that.
There's that too.
I what I envision years down the road as your child gets older, this book also having another piece that can come with it about her perception of being a donor conceived child. I mean, you said you've
Absolutely.
spoken to members of the donor
Yes.
conceived world and
Yes.
people who were donor conceived and received
Yes.
their feedback.
Yeah.
And I wonder,
Absolutely. I hope she doesn't hate me and I hope she loves me for it, but time will tell. We'll
well,
check in.
there will be times that she loves you for things, and there will be times that she hates you for things. That's just parenting. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm curious about, because the world is very different now. The people who are adults now, who are donor conceived, many of them didn't get a clear picture from the people that I've spoken to. I'm not donor conceived. I can't speak from perspective.
I would even add to that and say many were lied to, completely lied.
Fair.
Yeah.
That's very true. I just think, the ones who are adults now and have the vocabulary and the understanding to be able to explain their perspective. I
Yeah.
mean, queer people being able to become parents, people choosing to become solo parents by choice. Solo parents by circumstance is another set of circumstances, and that's not a story that shouldn't be told, but that's not this story. But I'm
Correct.
just thinking, how will those stories change? Because, as I say, people who are queer, who choose to have a family, is much more common and much more accepted around the world
Right.
generally in the
Right.
last 10 or 15 years than it was 20 or 30 years ago. So I'm
Yeah.
curious about how the mental space of the people who are donor conceived will be as they become adults.
I am too, which is another reason that self-publishing is really important to me. It's not easy to have a publisher and you go to them and you say, "Hey, the word dibbling has fallen out of favor," or,
Yeah,
nobody calls them this anymore, and I want this to be a lasting thing. Now, granted, donor conception may not be a thing in 15 years. Like, I don't know. I mean, they're doing all kinds of amazing things with stem cells and, who knows?
exactly.
Um, but yeah, the ability to, I mean, language changes. I mean, all the mistakes that we're doing as parents are all the things we're trying to correct about our parenting based on what our parents didn't do. We think we're so great, but we're going to get the same thing in 30 years from our kids. why did you tell me I needed, why did you tell me it's okay to be brave? And we'll be like, well, that was the thing. Well, by telling me that, you made me feel like if I wasn't brave, but like,
Yeah.
there's always going to be the
Always.
conundrum of new parenting research shows that dot dot dot.
Yeah.
So right now, the word dibbling is very disliked by the donor conceived adult community. Our kids may reclaim it and say, we love being called dibblings. And then they may grow up and those kids may say, oh, that's such a terrible word. We want our own word and we're going to call it this. And I'd like my books to be able to reflect that because I think that, linguistic trends are, I'm not talking about TikTok linguistic trends. I'm talking about heavy subject linguistic trends
Yeah.
are, there's a reason for them. And
Hmm.
it's because speaking a language that's validating is the way that we create healthy connections.
Hmm.
And it does change from generation to generation.
And it's supposed to.
Yes. It's too bad that all this gentle parenting I'm doing right now, one day they'll say, remember the era of gentle parenting? Here are all the mistakes you made with it.
Right.
You
Right.
told your children to be brave and you invalidated the fact that some kids just aren't, or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm writing my next book is called, well, I guess I can talk about it. My next book that will be out in the next couple months is called My Donor Sibling Club. And it's for children to understand what a donor sibling is and how that can feel like a club. Some kids like the club, some kids don't like the club, some kids really enjoy getting to know other members of the club, and some kids maybe don't want to have much to do with it, or maybe they'll do it later,
Yeah.
just like 4-H club, art club, drama club. And so that was very important to me to check with the donor conceived adult and make sure that resonated with them. Luckily, it does. And
Right.
so that book is in production right now. Um, I don't know, in 15 years, kids will say, why'd you call it a club? We don't call it a club, and I'll change it.
Yeah.
Or I'll just say, then just don't buy the book.
Well, but it's also allowed to be reflective of the time that it's
Yes.
being published in.
Right. And we know that there are certain books that stay the course of time and there are certain books that don't.
Yep.
I'm sure I had a nerve when I said Dr. Seuss. It was the first thing that came to mind, but I had forgotten in that moment. There are lots of people who will not touch Dr. Seuss anymore
Right.
for its inability to age well with terrible stereotypes,
It's true.
even Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So we have things change, and I like to be able to be malleable. And like I said, we'll see if there's such a thing as donor conception in 15, 20 years with technology and AI, and who knows.
Who knows?
Right now, I'm here for it. I'm here for giving these kids the opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to be proud, to be different but quirky, or different but not even feeling like a us versus them, just feeling like they've got their own path like we all do.
Yeah. And I think that part of that is just teaching them from a young age that the different is what's beautiful,
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
welcome it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have, on behalf of Single Moms by Choice, or at least me, we have learned a lot from the LGBTQ community. How to do things differently with confidence, how to understand donor conception. Maybe, yes, there were Single Moms by Choice 30 years ago, but there were just a handful versus now. Um, we have not had the struggle that the LGBTQ community has had, but we sure have learned about our own different struggle and how to do things really well with a lot of pride. And I feel that appreciation and that kinship. And it's nice to be together on this journey,
Mhm.
even though these journeys are different. There's just a lot that I appreciate and have learned in reflecting on the two mom family structure.
That makes a lot of sense. We learn from one another, right?
Yeah,
That's how we grow.
yeah, yeah.
I'm conscious of the time, and I know you've got somewhere you have to be. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you, what is your very, very favorite part of parenting your daughter?
My favorite part of parenting my daughter. This morning I was bringing her to camp, and she was she went with a friend yesterday, but today the friend wasn't going to be there. So she was a little bit nervous, and we were listening to there's this song from Peter Rabbit, the movie, sung by James Corden. I'd never heard this song before, and all of a sudden I discovered it, and I took a picture of it when I heard it like months ago, and I finally put it on a playlist, and we started listening to it this week. And it's all about how, Peter Rabbit, he's in Mr. McGregor's garden. It's pretty scary. So the song is about how things are scary, but there's a promise of love between two people. So no matter what, no matter if the sun turns to clouds and rain, I can promise you that our love makes each other, we can be each other's heroes. I freaking love the song. It's beautiful. Anyway, so I said to my daughter this morning, you know what? You make me smile every day. And I think that is my favorite part of being her mom, is that she makes me smile every day. There are days that are hard, and I still smile because of her. And there are days when I'm full of doubt, but I still smile. And I think, when you're single and living in the world, you kind of have days where you don't smile. You're like, today sucks,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to smile. But she is that promise every day of a smile. And it's just such a cool thing to have that.
That's very true, and that's a pretty profound way to wrap up our conversation.
Ew. I had not rehearsed that, had not thought about that.
There you
Check
go.
out this song. Check out this Peter Rabbit song. It's such an uplifting song about such a heavy subject. It's wonderful. It's our new
Oh,
favorite thing.
there you go. I'll check it out.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today and to tell everyone about your stories and why you created them. It's really been an honor to have you here.
It's been an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable paths and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.